Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has passed him by as his time is over. Now he attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world, and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it. And check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 28. The High Cost of Doing Business. I'm so bored, Naruto said, lying on his stomach inside of the Foxhound Parade's section of the Wowel that they bought out to stay in. 2 days after the entire situation at Eni's lobby had come to a close, the two crews had returned to Water 7. Of the Foxhound pirates, the injuries inflicted were pretty severe for most of them. Nojiko had taken quite a heavy bit of damage from Khalifa to go with her chakra exhaustion due to using the seals on her guns, including nearly having her spine severed by her Shigen attack. Johnny's legs were utterly worn down from overuse. The muscles were all useless due to the amount of attacks he had to launch during the battle and the amount of running he had to do with Vivi on his back to allow her to escape, not to mention the damage he took when Miss Valentine's attack crippled the Buster Call ship they were on. Miss Valentine had actually hurt herself pretty badly after her attack that had stopped the ship. Vivi had been taken aboard. She had a bruised tailbone and numerous cuts due to the wood that had flown about and scratched her. Yosaku had many deep slashes from Vice Admiral Strawberry and had broken a few ribs from Miss Valentine's attack on the ship. Soren had severe blood loss and many wounds of varying severity all over his body, most notably the deep puncture wounds around his collarbone, in addition to a broken left arm and fractures all over his body. Needless to say, the large living space was filled with sleeping, bedridden people, but the one that had seemingly taken as much damage as anyone and used more energy than all of them on that day, Uzumaki Naruto, appeared to be as right as rain at the moment. Murat was busy taking the bandages off of spots on his body that had taken heavy damage during his fight with Aokiji. Some of the nastier wounds were done by Naruto himself in his last attack, wounds that Chopper had hurried to patch up once the imminent threat of getting taken out by them Marines was over. How's it looking? Murat shook her head in response as she looked over Naruto's torso and arms. Like you were never hurt in the first place. Who heals from third-degree burns and all of the blunt trauma damage you took in 2 days, not to mention that gaping wound that was in your shoulder. You should be a flaking angry mess right now from what Chopper told me. You're seriously weird, Naruto-sama, she said to him as she finally peeled the heavy bandage off of his shoulder where Aokiji had stabbed him through. At least you don't require many supplies to fix, unlike everyone else. All you need from what I've seen are bandages and disinfectant and you're good to go. And I'm not even sure about the disinfectant, Naruto said jokingly as he got up off of the bed and checked himself over. Not that he didn't trust Murat, but it was just what you do whenever a doctor looks at you. Even though you know that it's not like you'd see something that they didn't, you still look anyway. I didn't know you had a tattoo though, Murat said rather distastefully. Those are sort of dangerous to get, especially where yours was situated, around your belly button. Naruto looked down and saw that she was referring to the odd pattern on his stomach. That's not a tattoo. It's a seal, like the one I put in Miss Valentine's umbrella, or like the ones I engraved in Noji-chan's gun. He sighed. You know, I was wondering when someone was going to ask me about that. It's an old remnant of my days as a Konoha shinobi. Murat only knew what everyone else had been able to tell her thus far about Naruto. Therefore all that she knew, same as everyone else, was that he was a ninja, had fought in a war to save his entire continent, and not much else besides that. How he was able to garner their trust without them knowing too much about him was beyond her. Oh, who was she kidding? She trusted him too. Well, she said to him as he put his shirt back on, I'm your doctor. I don't know anything about your medical history. At least everyone else on the crew has legitimate medical records that they can recite from heart. You just say that you've had so many injuries that it doesn't matter and to give you whatever. I need more info than that, Naruto-sama. Naruto shook his head as he put his sage coat back on. You're just using that as an excuse to dig up some dirt on me, aren't you? Murat smirked, giving him his answer, but he didn't seem too upset by it. Okay, fine, long story short, so we can get this out of the way. A long time ago there was something powerful inside of me. It's the reason I heal so fast and so well. It's the reason I have so much energy naturally, and basically it was a demon. Murat gasped. It used to be inside of me, but it's not anymore. It, and 8 other creatures like it are all somewhere safe, protected by the toads that I have a summoning contract with. Murat was still rather shaken up at trying to comprehend that Naruto used to have a demon inside of his body, but he had yet to lie to her, and he had said all of this with a straight face. She walked over to him and poked at his stomach. You really had something in there. Yes. Naruto replied glibly as he pulled her up from poking him. Why do people always try to mess with the seal when I tell them about it? Like something's going to pop out and say hi if they mess with me. Sorry Naruto-sama. Murat said sheepishly. Anyway, you're done. You're perfectly healthy, and I'm not going to give you the whole, take it easy, speech because even if I did you wouldn't do it. She made a shooing motion towards him. Now go on, get out of here already. Vivi's at Dock 2 checking on our ship. Yeah, he said as he opened the door out to the balcony of the room and stepped outside. She's been a good girl for the last 2 days. She's been running all of the errands while you kept us all cooped up in here. Someone's got to go relieve her. And I'll do that after I drop a little something with the straw hats. The only one out of all of you ungrateful bad guys that could even walk a straight line was you, and that was just yesterday. Murat snapped back at him heatedly before putting a hand to her temple and calming herself. Just go. I'll take care over everyone here. It was your job to do the fighting and my job to piece you all back together. I knew that when I joined up. Naruto gave her a faux salute and took to jumping along the rooftops away from the Wawl. Murat let out a sigh as she turned her attention to the remaining crew inside. How many of you were awake and heard him say what he said about the demon that used to be inside of him? She got a unanimous chorus of affirmative groans from the rest of them. Good. That means I don't have to repeat it for him. Now go back to sleep you bad guys or I'll get my new buddy to put you back to sleep. She said, patting a sword on her hip. A Western-style curved sword that seemed to have tusks on the hilt and a short tail on the pommel. Thank you for Funkfried Soren. You're welcome, he drawled out as he weakly lifted his arm and made a request. More drugs. That got a response from everyone else in the room as they all lifted their arms and echoed his sentiment. No. Murat yelled at them all. You're all not in enough pain that you need to be doped up, so gut it out. Ah. Vivi walked alongside the diminutive bald shipwright that Naruto had conscripted to work on their ship. Part of Vivi's self-tasked chores that she took upon herself to handle for the Foxhounds while they were temporarily out of commission was to check in with the status of the ship, and found that a pleasant surprise had awaited her with news on their leading shipwright once she arrived. I'm very happy for you Stanley. Well thank you L. Stanley said as he led her along the area of Dock 1. I have to say, even though those boys left in the middle of some turbulent times around here, those Dock 1 boys leaving gave me a great opportunity. I've got a spot now. And I'll still finish her ship before I move on up too. The least I can do for all of that high quality lumber that Mr. Uzumaki provided for his ship. I think I'll have plenty o leftovers to use at my leisure. Vivi was aware of the more than copious amounts of wood Naruto had managed to create after he and the Straw Hat crew decimated the Frankie family house, and was also aware of the fine amount of lumber that Naruto's clones had cut for the ship and also sealed away for his own later usage should it come to that. A useful tool, that Mokuden of his, destructive though. From what I saw I think he'll be very happy. Vivi said about the ship she had just come from viewing. It seems like it can take more of a beating too, which is good. She remembered how the ship wound up looking just due to the way that everyone trained most of the time. Stanley agreed. The wood that Mr. Uzumaki provided is wondrous. It's tougher than anything I've ever seen in person as far as lumber goes. Vivi stopped and extended her hand to Stanley. Well thank you for all of your hard work. When you finish be sure to call us. We have a Den Mushi now so you can contact us. I need to get back to the others, I've been gone all morning. Extending his hand as well to shake Vivi's, Stanley gave her a huge grin. It was no trouble at all. Fixing up all o Mr. Uzumaki's requests was actually pretty interesting. Be sure to tell him to stop in before I'm done so he can tell me what he thinks. Vivi shook her head. He doesn't want to see it until it's done. She let out a small laugh. I keep telling him it's dumb, but he won't even let me tell him what it looks like. He wants to be surprised by your work. Everyone's going to love it. The short shipwright laughed to himself as he walked away back to where he had been working. You know, I think I like that kind of attitude. Till the next time he said as he and Vivi parted ways. Naruto was whistling a jaunty tune to himself as he walked along with his hands shoved in his pockets. He had found his way to Dock 1 and forced his way past the gates fairly easily, although the people outside looked like they had seen a ghost or something from the expression on their faces. He wasn't that scary in person, when he wasn't trying to be anyway. How could he have spooked them? Naruto's answer came when he suddenly came face to face with someone he thought he had avoided the last time that person made port in Water 7 looking for him specifically. Monkey D. Garp, the 2 apprentices with him, and a ton of marines. Naruto simply stared at the rather imposing man with interest, Garp returning the favor, as everyone stopped in their tracks. The 2 apprentices, Kobe and Helmeppo, along with all of the underling marines could feel a heavy aura set over them all as Naruto and Garp stared at each other for the longest time, no one moved. Garp stroked his bearded chin as he looked down at Naruto who was looking back up at him with large inquisitive blue eyes and a tilt of his whisker-marked head. Nice day we're having, eh? The legendary Vice Admiral said to him. Naruto finally smiled back at him. Yeah, besides that storm that came through this place a few days ago, it has some really great weather most of the time. He looked around at the other marines that seemed to be shocked at seeing Naruto shoot the breeze with Garp face to face without any fear whatsoever. I came here for a little business and to catch up with my grandson. Garp admitted to Naruto freely as if Naruto had common knowledge on who that was. Unfortunately I've got to get back to base again, he almost couldn't believe it. A week ago this guy had been here looking for him. Did he really not notice him now, or was he really just ignoring Naruto's record? Either way, Naruto wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth, nor was he going to start a fight for no reason. Naruto eventually shrugged and continued on his way. Well, I have to be on my way. I've got some friends to meet up with and tons of errands to run today. Nice to meet you, he said, walking past Garp and the others as the marines cleared a large hole for him to pee through. Naruto's vision did go blurry for a moment when a flash of light hit his eyes and the sound of a loud camera C rang out, but he just ignored it. Garp let out a few chuckles and kept walking on his way, prompting his entourage to follow him. What a well-mannered young man. I wish Luffy was more like him. I think he'd make a fine marine. Kobe leaned over and whispered to Helmeppo, do you think we should tell him who that was? We just walked past Uzumaki Naruto like he was some normal guy on the street. Helmeppo looked behind him at Naruto's retreating and disappearing form and back at Garp who didn't seem to have a care in the world before he shook his head to his partner. I guess you're right. If they were meant to fight it would have just happened, wouldn't it have? Meanwhile, Naruto on the other hand wiped his brow once he got out of sight in relief. Thanked Kami. I really didn't want to fight someone like that a few days after I just got through doing the same thing, especially in a town that's still being rebuilt from that storm and the CP9. He continued on his own path as a thought came to mind. Still, there's something about that guy that seems familiar for some reason. Naruto. He turned to see Vivi walking towards him. I was just about to come back to the room. I see Murat finally let you out. Yep. He said cheerfully. I have a clean bill of health like always. You should know that a few baby scratches like the ones I got the other day aren't enough to keep me down, Vivi Heim. I was just about to go find the straw hats. Do you want to come with me? A nod from the Desert Nation princess was his answer. Yes. I saw them this morning before I started running errands, but they were still out of it for the most part. Luffy's actually in worse shape than all of our crew except for maybe you, but you heal so quickly it doesn't matter. She let out a scoff at him. Baby scratches, yeah, as if. Naruto laughed at the cavalier way he treated his own injuries and how Vivi perceived it. Anyway, let me tell you who I just met. Galila Company temporary headquarters. Naruto and Vivi walked in and were quickly able to find Sanji, Robin, Luffy, Chopper, and Zoro. As they both entered the living quarters of the pirate crew, Naruto had to point out something both he and the princess had seen. Why does that wall look like someone just broke it down? He asked the entire group, pointing at a wall that had been hastily repaired not too long ago. Luffy looked up and noticed the arrival of his friends and gave them their answer. I just got a visit from my grandpa. He wanted to talk about some stuff like my dad, what I've been doing, stuff like that. Well, that sounds nice. Vivi said as she walked in and took a seat at the small table with most of the others. It must be nice to have someone come all the way here to visit you. She noticed Luffy shiver slightly at mention of his grandfather. Naruto let out a laugh. I can only imagine the genes that wound up somehow spawning this guy down the line. He said, pointing over at Luffy, I really wish I hadn't missed that meeting, that was probably really amusing to watch. Luffy eventually shook off his trepidation when it came towards his grandfather and gave Naruto a grin. He didn't even try to capture me or anything, so it was actually really good. I got to see Kobe again too. I can't believe he's doing so well as a marine. Why would your grandpa want to? Naruto was about to answer him before he started putting things together. What Luffy had just said, and the meeting he just had with someone who said they were there to visit their grandson. Naruto gave Luffy a dry look and opened his mouth to make a smart remark of some point, but just shook his head as he saw the look on Vivi's face as an indication that she was able to string together what he had as well. I don't think I even need to say anything to you, I knew there was something familiar about that guy. I just dodged a bullet. Vivi looked at the confused Straw Hats and explained what the blonde captain meant by that. He ran into Vice Admiral Garp not too far from here outside. I think we were just lucky that I didn't run into any Marines around here or we might have been in some serious trouble. Zoro looked at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. You actually dodged a fight this time around instead of just trying to bulldoze through it like you usually do. That doesn't sound like you. Normally if you had run into Luffy's grandfather somewhere else then half of that town would be wrecked by now. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly before directing a light glare at Zoro. Hey, I never start any of the fights I get into, except for the last one, kind of. He shrugged. Actually, you know what, never mind. They still started that one as far as I'm concerned. He said, looking towards Robin who for some reason couldn't meet his eyes when he did so. Before he was able to call her on that strange behavior that he had never associated with Robin before now, Chopper was poking at prodding at the places he had been most gravely wounded in the other day. Naruto paid attention to the little reindeer seeming to marvel at the fact that there wasn't even a faint bruise or mark to show that he had been as hurt as he had been. His skin wasn't even red from the burns. Wow, Naruto, you're amazing. You're not even limping around or anything today. I don't limp, Chopper. Naruto said to the Straw Hat Parade's doctor. I told you I was going to be fine. There wasn't any need for you to freak out so badly when I climbed aboard your ship. When I'm actually so bad off that I'm worried about my own injuries, that's when people should start freaking out. Nami walked inside the room from outside in a bikini with a towel around her waist. Your powers are so weird. I don't know who's got weirder abilities, you or Luffy. Naruto smirked and took good notice of the female navigator's apparel as Sanji was reduced to a love-struck mess. Would it be wrong of me if I asked you to stay like that for as long as I'm here today? Luffy jumped up and got in Naruto's face. So why are you so strong again? You already told us about that chakra stuff that you say you use. There's got to be another reason besides that, right? I'm a rubber man, but my grandpa did weird stuff to make me strong when I was a kid. Nami gave him a dry look as she recalled what Garp called his training for Luffy in his youth. You mean like throwing you down valleys, leaving you alone in inhospitable jungles, and tying you to balloons to fly you up in high altitudes, she remarked rather distastefully at the practices that made Luffy what he was. Who does that to kids? Apparently Jiraiya wasn't the only person that had thrown a kid off of a cliff to get them stronger. Naruto shrugged at hearing these things. I don't see what the problem is here. That doesn't really sound that different from how I was trained, come to think of it. He noticed a lot of the more normal members of the crew, and even Vivi who should have known better by then, looking at him strangely. What? Is it really that surprising? You've seen what I can do. Like what? Luffy said excitedly. What did you do to get stronger? I can only imagine. Let's see. Naruto tried thinking back in order to how he got his defeats. When I was 12 I learned how to stick to surfaces using nothing but my own energy. Then I learned how to walk on water. I got thrown off of a cliff. Then I learned how to summon toads the size of skybatters. I learned how to carve into solid stone with my chakra. Then later when I was like 15 or 16 I had to cut a huge waterfall in half up the middle with my chakra. Then I had to learn how to absorb the energy of all of nature around me. It slowed down later, but more recently I had to will a sapling to instantly grow into a tree with my chakra, and learn how to freeze water with my will, not to mention all of the crap it took to get Hiraishin no Jutsu down. Yeah, I was really busy when I was a kid though. After hearing all of that, everyone stared at him until Zoro shook his head with a wry grin on his face. I love how you said all of that with a straight face, which means that everything you just said was completely true. And I like the cutting the waterfall exercise you were talking about. I need to try that. He said, imagining himself cutting all the way up a cascading waterfall with just his swords. By the way, Naruto-kun, Nami said before staring at him with money signs in her eyes. Guesses, 29, 31, 24. She exclaimed excitedly. Naruto pointed at her dramatically. Answer, wrong, wrong, wrong Nami-chan. She started counting off on her fingers and muttering to herself about what ages she had left to choose from before things started getting ludicrous. No devil fruit? Sanji asked him with a raised eyebrow. Naruto gave him a dry look. I've told you all like 1,000 times already, no. I didn't even know what that was until I started traveling the East Blue and met Luffy. This is what the strongest shinobi in existence is capable of. I'm more awesome than you Sanji, except it. The coolest blonde in the room is me. Oh. Vivi said in realization as she fished through her clothes and pulled out a Hiraishin kunai that she handed to Naruto. I got the knife you wanted me to get for you Naruto. The only one I was able to find was the one stuck in the headboard of your bed. Naruto frowned but accepted it from the princess. Thank you Vivi Heim. This is fine. I don't need them to fight right now. He stabbed the kunai in the center of the table. This is for you guys. He said with a smile, if you all ever think you need an extra hand, if you ever need my help, or if you just want to talk, feel free to throw this. No matter where I am in the world I'll feel it and I'll be right there if I'm not busy. He stopped for a moment before adding something to the end of that, actually, call the Den Den Mushi if it's not an emergency so I know and don't panic over nothing. Nami picked up the blade from the table and looked at it in thought before she realized what it was. This is that thing that you used to teleport around Aokiji when you fought, isn't it? That was so cool before he broke it. Why don't you have more? Naruto smiled at the girl as he took the weapon from her and FPED it around in his hands for a moment. They're hard to make and I'm no blacksmith. I still have more than a few, but if this is all that you use then you can be beaten by anyone that's halfway decent, even if you have a bunch. If you don't beat a good opponent in one move then they can just destroy the kunai and then focus on you, so all you do is end up wasting the energy darting all over the place. I can't use these against Aokiji if we fight again, he knows how they work. How are Johnny and Yosaku doing? Zoro asked Naruto. Changing the subject, Yosaku looked pretty rough when we were all heading back. Everyone looked rough. They're fine. Naruto insisted with a wave of his hand. Murat is just being all cautious because she's starting to really like us and doesn't want to see us hurt. It's sweet, but for someone like me it's a real drag. The door to the room opened at that point and the doctor of Naruto's crew herself walked in with her hands on her hips and a playful scowl on her face. Well, sorry for trying to make sure you all don't wind up crippled wrecks before we even get to the next island. 2 of you should have been dead after all of that. She pointed her thumb back over her shoulder. Anyway, I brought the rest of the crew Naruto-sama. How? Naruto asked her before the rest of his crew walked into the room and Nojiko handed Murat the sword that she placed in its sheath on her back. Everyone sat around and made themselves comfortable while Naruto started fuming about his unanswered question. Is anyone going to tell me how Murat got you all here or am I a ghost now? Murat tilted her head in confusion. You don't know what Funkfried can do. Didn't you fight the CP9 people? Soren was the one that got it for me. No. Naruto said. I was busy destroying a bunch of giant ships and fighting an admiral. The only CP9 guy the first fought was the one with the cow-looking haircut. Murat happily pulled the sword back out and held it forward. Okay Funkfried, you can come out now. The sword quickly transformed into a rather large white elephant that stood in front of Naruto and looked at him curiously. Naruto just stared back before waving, yo. He looked past the elephant at Murat. Did your sword just? Never mind, it's not like I haven't seen weirder stuff before. Murat walked up to Funkfried's side and gave the elephant a hug. He's so cute. And he's a sword most of the time so we can keep him on the ship, and you know how I can't fight. She whispered in the sword elephant's ear, and it suddenly transformed its tusks and trunk into blades, so I can train him too. Naruto drew his finger across the blade end of the trunk and saw that it easily cut him. Okay, cool. You can keep him. Naruto squealed happily and hugged the elephant again once it turned back to full animal form. I'm actually glad you guys are all here. I have something to tell you that I think you all need to know anyway. It wouldn't be fair to anyone if I kept this away from you guys any longer. Nojiko sat next to Nami and spoke up. We already know about those powers you told Naruto about, Naruto-kun. It's not important at all. After what we've seen, it's not even that big of a deal. No, not that, he said, shaking his head. That better not be a big deal after all of the I've seen in comparison since leaving my home. I'm talking about something else. He looked at Nami. Do you know how I kept having you guess my age and you could never get it? Well, I'm going to give you one more try. Nami took a moment to think. She didn't even care about winning the 100,000 belly anymore. From the tone of his voice it was rather serious. I don't want to, Naruto-kun. Is it really that important? Naruto nodded. Yeah, it is. It's why I was so hesitant to be with you or Nojiko. I'm still kind of shifty on it. It's because I'm actually around 120 years old. It's around that by a year or two. I stopped counting since it doesn't matter to me. Everyone stared at him with slack-jawed expressions and wide eyes before Sanji pointed at him slowly. Devil fruit. It is not a devil fruit, it. Naruto snapped at him childishly. Come on. You're the reason that people think blondes are so stupid. He chose to ignore how hypocritical that statement was, and the gravity of his last proclamation made sure that none of the more smart aleck members of either crew called him on it. But anyway, yeah. I'm immortal. He said before pausing and moving his hands in a ghostly manner. Ooh. Everyone kept quiet until finally Luffy was the first to speak. Cool. So you're like an old man or something, Naruto Gigi. You're a super, grandpa hobo. Naruto just stood and stared at Luffy emotionlessly before walking towards him with his hands extended in a strangling motion. A pair of hands came from the floor to hold him in place and keep him from murdering Luffy. He looked up at Robin, who again looked away from him, but her eyes cut back towards him every once in a while. Soren said, raising his hand like a schoolchild. I think I speak for everyone here when I say, how in the air you immortal? Naruto sat on the floor and started fielding questions. My family always had a naturally powerful life force. Apparently I was going to live to be over 100 no matter what, but those healing powers I talked about are more akin to regeneration. My body never really broke down from its peak conditioning. That's why I look like this and I'm as old as I am. And I'm so in tune with nature that I don't get illnesses or diseases. He then hurriedly raised his hands defensively. I can still die if anyone good enough to defeat me ever pulled it off. I can still be defeated, I just can't die, and I'm going to outlive every last one of you. That's the reason I was so skittish. Nami waited for the room to go silent again. Is that why you left your village that you told us about? Because you outlived your friends. Naruto nodded. They were all getting older and all had families. I didn't. I don't have any kind of family ties, just friends, so I left Konoha and traveled around the entire continent trying to keep the peace. Eventually I wanted to leave the continent altogether, so I did, and now I'm here. He looked around, at his crew in particular. I took you guys with me so that I could do whatever I could to help you all with your goals. And then what? Naruto blinked and looked towards Miss Valentine, who had a serious look on her face and her arms crossed over her chest. She didn't have any hint of a smile whatsoever. Naruto replied in the only way he thought was reasonable at the moment, huh? You know well you heard me the first time, Naruto. She said, narrowing her eyes at him dangerously. What exactly were you going to do after you had helped us? You told us that you fought a war, and then left the people around you because they didn't need you and they had lives to live. What are you going to do when Johnny and Yosaku get good enough to fight on par with Zoro? What are you going to do when it's safe enough for Vivi to go home? What exactly was your plan? He didn't know what to say at first before he stood up and shoved his hands in his pockets. You know what? I don't have anything to say that won't piss you off right now, so I'll just say it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any idea what I was going to do, but I wasn't going to stay. He said, pacing around, seeming to be rather irritated with the way the conversation was going. I was going to make sure that you were all as happy as I could make you, and then I was going to vanish again. I was going to leave and go protect the elemental nations again. I can't stay with you and watch you all get older and die while I stay the same. I already did that once. Nami abruptly stood up in shock. Wait a minute, you're just going to leave. Just like that. One day and poof, none of us will ever see you again. How long have you all known me? Naruto asked them. For those of you that can say you have, for the longest it's been little over 6 months. That's not long at all. And eventually my crew won't need me anymore, they'll be strong enough to do what they want on their own. By then I should have made enough noise so that if the world government ever puts its feelers out towards the elemental nations they'll know not to touch it. He said, trying to explain his long-term plan of action. Most of you will barely notice I'm gone when I go. Nojiko shook her head at him. How could you say that? What if the entire reason some of us are even here? She stopped talking abruptly before she tried to finish her thought quietly. What if the entire reason some of us are even here right now is because of you? That's why I'm here. Soren said. If it weren't for Uzumaki I don't know where I'd be right now. I probably would have been cornered and locked up by now, maybe defeated. He's a little stupid from time to time, but he's a good person. Johnny pointed to himself and Yosaku. If it weren't for Naruto and Ikki we'd be two pathetic bounty hunters barely scraping by in the East Blue, still getting beaten up by any loser pirate barely worth talking about. But now we're so much better than we used to be, I can't believe it. Vivi swung a beautiful smile towards Naruto that seemed heartfelt. If it weren't for Naruto I would be a political prisoner of the world government's Gorausei right now for doing what I had to in order to save my country. He took me in and took blame for kidnapping me. He never even asked me for anything. He's even training me to be stronger so that I don't have to rely on people stronger than me to keep helping me. Miss Valentine held herself and looked down. He saved me from being defeated by my own partner just so he could have a chance to win an unwinnable fight. And he actually gave me a place to stay, and promised to protect me. Nojiko looked right into Naruto's eyes and spoke next. Naruto-kun, you saved my entire island and freed my sister from Arlong and his pirate crew. You defended us from a corrupt marine official that came in and tried to pick off the scraps. No one ever even asked you to do it. You did it because it was the right thing to do. Someone as wonderful as you shouldn't be alone. You're the only reason I even came all the way out here. I think I'm in love with you. Naruto looked at her and then at Nami, who seemed to be looking at him the same way as her sister was. He turned towards Miss Valentine and saw her actually blushing and looking away from him, still trying to seem angry but failing miserably. Naruto looked down with a melancholy appearance on his face, and that's what I didn't want. If I loved any of you back then I'd have to watch you die one day. He looked at Nami in particular. That's what I meant when I said that a relationship between me and anyone could go perfectly but still end all wrong. Nami walked over and grabbed a hold of his hands. Naruto-kun, you don't need to think that far ahead. That wouldn't happen for a long time. You shouldn't be afraid to be happy just because you're immortal or have too much strength to be safe around or whatever problem you think there is. Look at us, she said, gesturing to everyone in the room. All of us have some kind of baggage. There's something about all of us that keeps us from being normal just like everyone else, same as you. And if we die then so what? At least you were happy while we were here, at least you let us try to make you happy. She finished, wrapping him up in a hug that she was happy to feel him return. After a moment they backed away from each other and Naruto turned around to leave the room. Sorry guys. I've got to grab some air for a moment. He quickly made his way outside, but when he was followed outdoors the only sign of his presence was a small whirlwind blowing leaves around. Naruto was walking on the surface of the ocean towards one of the outlying islands not far from Water 7. He couldn't stay there right then. Was it that hard to just let go? He did it. He let go of his home, his country, his friends and every bond he had managed to scbad together and form for their own good. But in the end he always knew that he wouldn't be able to go forever without making any more friends, and he knew better than anyone else just how hard friends would fight for each other. He just came back from the best example of that he could possibly think up. He continued to walk, even as he made it ashore to a new island that he found to be called St. Poplar. As he walked through the town portion of the island he continued to think to himself, Cammy, I'm really being stupid this time. There's no overlapping reason for me to want to be distant from them, I'm just being a coward. I'm running away from another problem. I don't run from problems, I kick the out of problems until I solve them. He clenched his fists tightly inside of the pockets of his sage coat, tight enough to draw blood from his palms. I'm willing to hurt them just because I'm too much of a punk to get close to them and leave them later. The way I worded everything, I would have had to leave soon. I don't have to do that for at least a decade or so, if even then. He let out a sigh as he continued to walk along until something alerted him. People were gathering from all around to a particular part of the street that Naruto soon made his way towards as well. He easily nudged his way to the front of the crowd where he saw Bluno playing hype man for what looked to be a wolf jumping through a flaming hoop. Apparently what they were doing was quite popular because they seemed to be making a ton of money off of the crowd. Naruto raised an eyebrow as the crowd applauded them. As the two took their bows, Bluno noticed Naruto staring at them in the crowd with an amused smirk on his face. Oh no. Not that guy again. He turned to the wolf. Jabura, we've got to get out of here now and find the others. What? Jabura whispered back in response. We're actually starting to make enough money to get the doctors to save Lucci and you want us to leave. Bluno wordlessly moved his head towards Naruto, getting Jabura to get a good look at the blonde, who actually waved at them this time as the crowd started to disperse. Oh. Bluno turned to open an air door, but Naruto somehow appeared right by him and grabbed his arm. Nope, you ain't going anywhere. I'm not even here to fight you guys, just to talk. We already won. I just have to ask you, what the are you guys doing? While none of the other CP9 agents save for Rob Lucci were conscious to see just what had transpired after their defeats, Bluno actually had been, as he had woken up after his thrashing by Naruto and had been the one to use his devil fruit ability to keep the entire crew safe from the Buster Call on the Tower of Justice at Eni's lobby. He had seen firsthand the battle Naruto had fought against the ships, and he had even seen Naruto's battle with Aokiji after he had retrieved Lucci following his defeat by Luffy, and he had regaled the entire group of his first-hand witnesses' account of what he had seen. He knew that if Naruto had really been there to do harm to them, there wasn't a single thing they could honestly do about it. Thus he didn't fight back or try to run when Naruto grabbed him, nor did Jabura move to attack him. Naruto reciprocated this peaceful truce of sorts by letting go of Bluno's arm and keeping cool about the situation, allowing the large member of CP9 to explain what was going on. We're raising money so that Rob Lucci can get medical treatment. The fight with Straw Hat, Luffy did a number on him. And when he gets better he isn't going to come and try to pick a fight with us, is he? Naruto said rather seriously, because only air, space, and a lack of opportunity kept me from cleaning his clock myself when I saw him with Robin-chan. Definitely not. Jabura said to Naruto with something of a scoff, we're also being blamed for that cluster at Eni's lobby, so fighting with you and the others you were with aren't going to do us any good at all even if we could actually win this time around. He transformed back into his full human form once he realized no one else was watching. We gave our entire lives to training and working for the world government, and this is what we get in the end after one failure. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Naruto thought to himself as he started understanding their situation. Or does that make them my enemy too? Meh, I can't tell. Everyone I end up fighting somehow F-flops sides. I can't keep it straight. Are you guys going to be here for long? He asked, getting suspicious looks from them both. I'm not going to hurt you or turn you in or anything. I'm the only one that knows you're here, and that was a coincidence. They both looked at each other before turning back to Naruto and nodding. Bluno addressed him, we'll be here until Rob Lucci is healed and rested. Good. Naruto said, I'll be back here in a few days and I'll have something for you guys that you might like, or you might not. Anyway, pretty soon I'll be back here and I'd like to talk to you guys if I could. He didn't give them a chance to answer as he walked away from them, continuing on his way. I'll see you guys later. As they watched Naruto walk away, Jabura turned to Bluno, so what do we do? We can't leave with Lucci the way he is, do we fight? No. Bluno said with a frown on his face, we have to listen, even if we don't care about what he has to say. If he really wanted to hurt us or wanted to take something from us he would have right then and there. There wouldn't have been any need to come back later, he doesn't need his crew. Later nightfall, Naruto had been ignoring the beacon for Hiraishin in his head for hours. At first it would hit him every 2 minutes, but eventually it died down to the point where he hadn't felt anyone try to reach him for several hours. However, he had taken more than enough time by then to think to himself. He was still completely uneasy with the way things were, him outliving everyone and staying the same while they all grew older and eventually died, but he also realized that he couldn't just go through life without anyone. That would be a miserable experience, and he knew it already from his childhood. Why would he want to relive it forever and inflict it on himself? So this time, when he felt the call for the Horatian a little past midnight, he had decided he had been a baby about things for long enough and decided to head back and make his apologies to whoever was still awake. In a flash of yellow, he vanished from the area of his sulking and reappeared outside of the Galley La Company building near a vacant pool. From the smell in the air, there had been a lot of food there not too long ago, but the area was now vacant and empty. Sighing to himself as he picked up the kunai from the ground and placed it in his pocket, Naruto began walking out onto the surface of the pool water, where he finally came to a stop. No fair. Naruto turned to a shadowed corner of the area and saw Robin walking from the shadows with a smile on her face. You know, I can't swim and I can't walk on water either. How am I supposed to talk to you? Shrugging to her and chuckling as he walked back to dry land, Naruto stopped in front of her and took a deep breath. Have you guys been throwing the kunai all afternoon? I could feel it, but I was just ignoring it, he said as he took the kunai back out of his pocket and handed it to Robin. She took the weapon and gave it an inspecting look. That kind of takes the use out of it if you ignore when people are trying to reach you. Naruto frowned as a proverbial raincloud appeared over his head. Hey, I was kind of having a moment of manly reflection time. He quickly got over it and cleared his throat. Anyway, I came back to apologize to anyone that I hurt by walking out and leaving the way I did. In case it was you, I'm sorry, Robin-chan. She shook her head and kept her good-natured smile intact. You didn't hurt me. I understand the reason why you wanted to leave. You just kept me from doing the same thing not even a week ago, remember? Naruto's eyes widened in realization and he opened his mouth to dispute. However, Robin shut him down. Yes, it really is the same thing. I don't want to hear it. You were right when you said you were more like me than I possibly knew. I lost everyone around me and was powerless to do anything about it. That made me afraid that it could happen again. You're the same in that respect. He shut his mouth and actually listened to what she had to say before rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. I guess I am. Man, I'm a hypocrite. A nod came from Robin as she poked him in the chest with her finger. And if you did possibly try to leave, do you really think that no one here would go after you like all of you did for me and find some way to convince you that you're being stupid or drag you back? Naruto blinked owlishly at that before he started laughing. If you could find me, I could disappear tomorrow and no one would catch hide nor hair of me until I got where I was going. All you guys have on me is my name and the name of my home country and village that I can't return to. Other than that, take that away and none of you would even know how to find me. He then sighed, but I would never just walk away like that, even if I wanted to. Just go with it, Naruto. Robin said at last. She started walking around him in a circle as she continued to talk. Don't let it bother you. Do you want to know how many people actually cared that you were immortal after you left? None of us. We actually had a party with the Frankie family and the Galila workers when you left, but you didn't come back and you missed it. We really missed you here. Even Polly wanted to talk to you about something. Polly. You missed me? Naruto said questioningly. Ever since we've gotten back you won't even speak to me, Robin-chan. This is actually the first actual conversation we've had since you said thank you to me after the fight with Aokiji. She stopped behind him and laughed slightly. Well, after we all came back, no one on the crew would let me alone long enough to find you so that I could be with you by myself. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked over his shoulder at the woman. Why did you need to be by yourself to find? Robin abruptly turned him around and planted a rather lengthy on him, wrapping her arms around his neck to pull him closer. Eventually, Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist and allowed her to freely continue until she was content and chose to let go. Naruto stood frozen for a moment before speaking again. Okay, part of me knew that was going to happen. He looked at her strangely. Why did that just happen? You saved my life twice and it's because of you that I even joined the Straw Hats in the first place. I heard everything you said when you fought Aokiji too. She said as she walked incredibly close towards Naruto and stopped a mere matter of inches away from him as she looked up at him. I trust you now, Uzumaki Naruto. Isn't that what you wanted in the first place? Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah, but still that didn't explain the You can't possibly want a relationship with me, no one could after hearing me say that I'm over 100 years old. That would be weird, especially with me always looking like this. Why aren't you crushing on Luffy? Luffy's nice, so are all of the Straw Hats, but they're all too young for me. I'm 28 Naruto, they're all teenagers. She said, not backing away from him. In return, Naruto gave her a dry look with a twitching eye, and I'm not too old for you. I'm 100 years older than you. Robin simply gave him a shorter to accentuate a point, I'm an archaeologist. I like old things. And with the Hiraishin Kunai I can call you anytime I want. She then frowned at him and backed away, but it's not about me right now Naruto. Nami was actually the one that took you leaving the hardest. You walked away from her when she tried to hug you and let you know she didn't care. That hurt her, even though she hid it well for the most part during the party I could see through it. I knew something like that was going to happen. He said lowly, mostly to himself. Whenever Naruto thought he was being magnanimous in some way it never seemed to pan out the way he thought it did in his head. Usually it took someone kicking him in the to tell him that he was wrong. This time he'd come to the conclusion on his own, but he still wound up hurting at least one person that he knew of by being stupid. Robin pointed in a direction, she's over by the ledge of this level of the city. It's not far from here, she should be easy to find. Go fix it. Naruto nodded and began walking off to go find Nami. Once he got out of Earswow, Robin headed back inside of the temporary HQ. Naruto, you say you don't want any of us to care about you or love you, but you couldn't bear it if any of us hated you or were hurt because of anything you did. That's pretty much leaving it up to us, and you should know what we'll choose. It didn't take any longer than 15 minutes to find Nami sitting atop the large wall at the end of the ledge that kept people from simply falling to a lower level of the city, looking out over the vast majority of Water 7. Naruto walked over and took off his sage coat before draping it over her shoulders and sitting down next to her. At first he chose not to say anything, taking the time to just spend some time with her. He hadn't seen her since Alabasta, and with everything that had surrounded their arrival at Water 7 he hadn't gotten a chance to spend any decent quality time with her that didn't involve one of them fighting someone else. He wanted to put an arm around her, as he could sense that she wasn't in a bright mood at the moment, but he couldn't just do that. He had to have something worthwhile to say to her. Anything at all that would have helped. Thank you. Nami finally said to him, breaking the silence that, while comfortable, was wearing on Naruto's nerves. He was glad that it wasn't just him. No problem Nami-chan. Naruto said, glad to be talking about anything at this point in time. You can't just be sitting out here by yourself in a bikini and a towel. You'll get sick. Not for that. She said, confusing him, I don't think I ever properly thanked you for everything you've done since the day we met. You kept Buggy from attacking me, you kept the Black Cat pirates from tearing me and Usopp apart, you didn't judge me when I took the Going Merry from the Baratie or for being one of Arlong's pirates, and then you went ahead and freed my home for me. I never said thank you for all of that. Naruto shook his head with a smile on his face, you ed me, that counts. And then you more or less said you wanted a relationship with me. Those seem like huge ways to say thank you to me. It didn't take long for him to stop smiling as he remembered the reason he had come out here in the first place. I'm sorry Nami-chan. I walked away like a little kid that didn't want to face a problem. Keeping you all away from considering me important to you isn't going to solve anything. It would just make me miserable, just like you said all the time ago in Alabasta. Nami scooted closer to him and put her head on his shoulder. Nothing's changed to me since you told us all of that Naruto-kun. I don't think it has for anyone else either. You seem to be someone that wasn't quite mortal in the first place. With Enel, you're more like a god than he ever was. She was silenced when Naruto put a finger to her to stop her from talking. He gave her a look of slight distaste. I don't know who Enel is, but please, don't call me a god. I'm not. You're not the first person to make that kind of comparison, and I'm really not. I don't ever want to think that way about myself. Nami ed his finger before he could put it down and rubbed his cheek, stroking his whisker marks with her thumb. Such a sad face. Don't look that way. I'm not mad. I can understand why you're hesitant, but I'll tell you what I already told you, I don't care. I'm greedy Naruto-kun. I know what I want, and if I want it I'll go and get it. And in case you haven't noticed it by now, I want you. What about? Naruto was about to argue about the other women that he knew for a fact were into him as well, but Naruto cut him off by eyeing him deeply, taking advantage of his attempt to speak by spitting her into his mouth. Any argument he had was phased out of his head as he savored Nami's taste. "Oh Kami, she's still so sweet. She tastes just like tangerines, I swear." As Nami broke off she giggled at the staggered look on Naruto's face. He must have really liked that. What about Nojiko? Or Miss Valentine? Or even Robin? She kept a certain part of her thoughts to herself. I think even Vivi is starting to think about him like that. Naruto nodded dumbly, getting Nami to lightly slap him. They don't care either. I know they don't. Nojiko cares about you too much to care. And Miss Valentine, well, she won't budge on the matter. Plus if Robin wants you, she'll just take you. And a softie like you won't have it in you to turn any of us down. Ecstatic that it didn't take too much for him to cheer Nami up and get her to forgive him for how he acted earlier that day, Naruto wrapped her up in a huge hug that got her to start laughing. I'm not a softie, Nami-chan. I'm a hardened warrior capable of throwing the world in chaos. Take me seriously, he said as they fell to the side on the ground, still holding onto one another. It's not fair, Nami said after a moment with a huge smile on her face. Nojiko told me about all of the times you and her were together. I met you first and I haven't seen you without so much as even your shirt yet. Naruto frowned. Nami-chan, really? Here. Come on now. Anyone with a good eye could see us up here, or any of either of our crews could find us here if they knew where to look. The navigator frowned. Well, it's not like we can go to your wowel or my wowel. Where else could we possibly go? Naruto looked out over Water 7 and a smirk came to his face. Do you trust me, Nami-chan? Yeah, she said hesitantly at the look on his face. Why would you need me to? She stopped talking in exchange for a yelp of surprise when Naruto scooped her close and rolled them off the side of the wall to fall the way down to the ground before he took off with her in his arms. Where are you going, Naruto-kun? Not far, he promised before he was able to find what he wanted. An open area, intended to be the site where the real Galila headquarters was to be rebuilt, and yes, there's dirt here. He began making hand seals. Mokuten, Shichuka no Jutsu, would release. 4 pillars house jutsu. Nami's jaw almost dropped as she saw a small house emerge from the ground and tower over them. She dumbly walked inside with Naruto when he grabbed a hold of her hand and led her inside. I swear, the things you can do are getting to be ridiculous, she said to him before shrugging off the sage coat onto the floor and shoving him into a chair that had been built when he made the house. Lemon start Naruto let Nami straddle his lap while he gently rubbed her sides and let her press his head into her bosom. MRPHFMVN, MNTYHN, MRPHF Fry. Nami blinked and removed Naruto's head from her chest to look at his face. What? I didn't get that. Naruto smiled up at her and pulled her body close to him. I said, 372133. He saw the rather surprised, blushing look on her face after he said those numbers. Yeah, that's one of the many useless things I know how to do. I could tell just from looking at you and estimating from there, and I like it a lot. Changing her look of shock to a rather seductive glance that made his heart skip a bit, Nami grabbed a hold of Naruto's hands and moved them towards the back of her bikini, encouraging him to let loose the tie, keeping it on her, a task he quickly completed before slowly pulling the fabric from her chest to reveal her rather bountiful S and pink S. Before he could even make a comment, Nami had yanked his white shirt over his head and had cast it aside to get a good look at Naruto, who she eyed again before removing his headband and letting it fall to the floor, the metal making a clink noise that disrupted the general silence of the room as the two continued to make out. The two slowly backed their away from one another as blue eyes met brown. Naruto was running a hand through Nami's orange hair while she ran her hands over his muscles and slowly tried grinding herself on Naruto's erection. The heat between them got to them both as Naruto undid the orange sash over his pants and quickly rid himself of them in his boxers while Nami wriggled her way out of the rest of her bikini without getting off of him. That's better, she said rather heatedly, pressing all of her naked body against Naruto's and sitting down fully in his lap. Much better, Naruto said in agreement as he started ing all over Nami's neck and collarbone, intentionally trying to leave hickeys on her for the world to see the next day. Nami eyed and let out a sharp cry when she felt him bite down hard enough to get her attention. Sorry, Nami-chan. My teeth are kind of sharp. Didn't hurt, she consoled quickly in reply as she felt herself getting wet. Sitting up on her knees more, she let out a whimper as she felt Naruto switch from her neck to her S. The girl on top began to position herself over his. All of the foreplay thus far had been like dangling the proverbial carrot in front of her, especially when this one in particular had been pressing against her so much that she was almost driving herself mad at wanting to get herself off. Naruto-kun, I'm ready. Naruto's mouth freed itself from Nami's left with a pop. Whatever you say, Nami-chan. He said as he placed his hands on her waist to help hold her in place. This is probably going to hurt, so just bear with me, okay? I'm right here. Nami nodded and slowly exhaled as she lowered herself down, finding the point of resistance she knew she'd have to get through to go any further. She stopped there, trying to compose herself for what she knew was about to happen. Take your time. We're in no rush, I've got all the time in the world. He said, trying to make a joke to relieve her nerves. He's so sweet, she thought to herself, as Naruto lovingly returned his attention to Nami's bosom as he waited for her to finally decide to begin. She ran her hands through his blonde hair before deciding to go all the way and force Naruto through her hymen. A yelp of pain from Nami came before he felt her shiver in his lap. All he could really do was her and hold her close until she calmed down. He didn't bother trying to move any portion of his lower body no matter how much his more primal instincts told him to. Eventually Nami began to stir and move herself around. In her, she started moving up and down slowly to work through the low dull throbbing feeling that had come with popping her cherry. Come on Naruto-kun. Nami said as she started to steadily pick up the pace, starting to feel much better. Are you going to help me or am I too much for you? Yeah right. Naruto growled lowly at the girl that was now bouncing up and down on top of his. When he started personally icing and adding to her momentum, he heard her sigh out loudly, throwing her head back and putting an arrogant smirk on his face. Sorry Nami-chan, too much for yo. He was cut off when Nami muffled her own lustful sounds by covering her mouth with Naruto's and ing him deeply while continuing to ride him. The young woman held to his shoulders tightly enough to nearly draw blood with her nails. Oh god, you're such a bad guy Naruto-kun. Making me wait all this time for this. I should have just seduced you on Kami Island and been done with it. We could have been doing this so much sooner. She thought to herself as their S were engaged in a duel to supplement the lovemaking. Not satisfied with how things were currently going, Naruto stood up and placed Nami on the table nearby that had been built when he created the house, pulling out of her and away from her as they stared at each other wantonly. Nami's S moved up and down as she panted heavily from their activities thus far. She scooted back on the table and lay back, giving Naruto a sexy smirk as she spread her legs for him, not saying a word. There wasn't any need for her to say anything. Naruto climbed atop the table as well and easily buried himself inside of Nami completely, letting out a grunt as he enjoyed Nami's warmth for a moment, allowing the moonlight coming through the windows to give him a fine view of her form. He was distracted from staring by Nami planting on his chin and pouting at him. The pout quickly vanished from her face when he pulled back and thrust into her one good time. I was just enjoying the view Nami-chan. You're beautiful, he said quietly as he kept in and out of her, letting himself savor the feeling of her body and the sound of her love cries. Every move he made she seemed to love. He wanted to tell her to scream as loudly as she could, and a part of him wanted her to say that she loved him, with how he had felt earlier that day. Things were how they were, and who was he to tell these girls how to feel and how not to feel? Naruto-kun, please don't stop. Nami said as she wrapped her legs around his waist in an effort to drive him deeper inside of her somehow. I need you. Naruto pushed up off of her and placed her legs over his shoulders to hit her from a different angle that nearly made her lose it. Oh god. I can't. She bit her and let out a groan that she tried and failed to bite back. Naruto whispered in her ear as he never stopped driving himself in and out of the lovely straw hat navigator. You can't what? Go ahead and tell me. I want to hear that beautiful voice Nami-chan. Don't hold back on me. He held her arms down by her wrists, delighting in the torture he was giving her by not allowing her to writhe around. Nami could honestly say that it was the most pleasant feeling of discomfort she had ever felt in her life. If this was what sex with Naruto was like the first time, she had a feeling she was going to be abusing the Hiraishin kunai that he gave to her crew repeatedly, because from what Nojiko had told her of their past interactions, he was actually holding back on her because she was a virgin. She couldn't tell him not to, because right now from the feeling of having his S defeatfully stretch her inner walls, she wasn't sure she could take him trying to go all out on her. I can't take any more, she said before letting out one harsh shout as she felt her entire body tighten and finally go slack on the table. Feeling Nami's climax prompted Naruto to release his own. Nami's tightly clamping down around him was the last straw for him as he swallowed his own seed inside of his gorgeous lover. Nami let out another small when she felt Naruto finish and let her legs set back to lying down on the table as intended. Nami grabbed his face and ate him wildly, whining stubbornly when he pulled out of her. Naruto-kun, I wanted to stay like that all night. Naruto chuckled as he hovered over her and stroked her face softly. It's not good for you to stay like that for a long time. And we can't stay here all night either. Laying on this table or floor would be murder on your back. The only one allowed to mess that up is me. He shook his head when she tilted hers in confusion. I'll show you what that means later. He tried to get off of the table when he felt Nami pull him back down. What? She had a rather vixen-like smirk on her as she whispered in his ear, why don't you show me right now? I need the practice after all. Naruto ate her on the neck and pulled away. Not really. You're a gifted amateur, I have to say. But I am supposed to be apologizing to you after all, he said with a grin. Well then, she said, grabbing a hold of his again, working it slowly on purpose. You can apologize to me all night long, Naruto-kun. End lemon. A few days later, Foxhound Pirate's hotel room. Soren yelled, expressing the feelings of every person at the table playing poker. The Straw Hat crew had come over to hang out over at the Miv suite purchased out by the Foxhound Pirates, and it had slowly degenerated into everyone with a decent pocketful of cash putting it up for kicks. At this point, still in the game were Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Soren, Yosaku, Johnny, and of course the man with the devil's luck himself, Uzumaki Naruto. Soren threw his hand on the table as Naruto's arm snaked across the table and reeled in his winnings from the hand. Uzumaki never loses. I swear to God, he should have 4 cards all the time, but could bluff his way off of death row if he had to. No one gets a hand good enough to call each time. I do. Naruto said as he laughingly pulled his money towards him, laughing all the way. You should stop being stupid and fold early like everyone else is learning to. The way things had been going thus far had been. Zoro crapped out first and early, and somehow Nami got him to allow her to bankroll him for as long as he decided to play, which was until he won a hand, something he hadn't been able to do after an hour of playing, thus putting him far in the hole as far as Nami and her high interest rates were concerned. Sanji kept folding for Nami when it looked like she might win a hand, even when he had kick cards. Soren kept trying to go head-to-head with Naruto and was quickly running out of spending cash. He was convinced that no one could win every single time like Naruto was, poor fool. Johnny and Yosaku at this point were just wasting space as they both knew they couldn't win but were too stubborn to back out. Johnny smirked at his swordsman partner. Put Kubikirabucho up next hand, Yosaku. It's Naruto Anaki's anyway. I want a chance to win it. No way in. Yosaku said defensively, this is my baby until it's pried from my cold, dead hands. Oh come on. Johnny yelled in reply. You have cool swords. Zoro Aniki has, well he had cool swords. Zoro growled at him for that. Where's my cool sword? A sheathed blade was tossed at him that he caught on reflex. What's this? He asked as he unsheathed it slightly to reveal that it was an Uchigatana much like the one he already had, but something about it felt different and powerful. Naruto was perusing through his winnings. It's called Kusanagi no Tsurugi, GR cutting sword. I've been keeping it for a while and I decided you're strong enough that you can use it now. He said nonchalantly. Awesome. He said to himself as he unsheathed it and held it in his hands, getting the feel for it. It was definitely the finest sword he had ever held. Even Zoro was staring across the table with a look of jealousy on his face. Zoro turned to Naruto and gestured at Johnny. What the was that? One of my swords got destroyed during the battle at Eni's lobby and you give him one when he already has one. Naruto gave him a dry look. Why would I give you that one? So you can break it too. You go through more swords than anyone I know, and besides, you already had a cursed sword to sit on it. He then clapped his hands over his mouth, hoping that Johnny didn't hear him. He wasn't that lucky. Johnny looked at his new sword and then at Naruto, narrowing his eyes at him behind his sungles. What's wrong with it? Nothing. Naruto said before he realized that no one in the entire room, including the people that weren't playing, was buying it. Fine. It may have belonged to one of the most twisted and evil men I've ever met in my entire life before I found it and took it. And it may have powers, and it may be, just maybe, small chance I'm telling you, it may defeat you if it doesn't like you. How? Johnny asked, looking at it warily. He knew of cursed swords and how they got their users defeated if they didn't like who was wielding it. Two snakes might materialize out of the guard and bite your wrists. Naruto said at rapid speed before adding something as an afterthought, but it might not do that, and even if it does there's a chance that you might survive. I did. Murat chimed in from where she was sitting in the room with the others. That's because you have the immune system and inner defenses of a cyborg. Not really helping me sell the sword here, Murat. Naruto snapped irritably from the playing table before turning his attention to Johnny. I wouldn't have given you the sword if I didn't think you could handle it. Go for it. Johnny looked between Naruto and the Kusanagi for the longest time before switching out the swords at his belt, patting the new weapon at his side contently. If it defeats me, I guess. At that moment, Vivi rushed through the door holding a newspaper and panting, heavily out of breath. You guys. Pant, you really need to see this, now. She said, slamming the paper in the middle of the table and opening it wide. Naruto looked at the paper and raised an eyebrow with a chuckle. It said that we're allied crews. We declared war on the world government and blew the island to Kingdom Come. Doesn't say anything about the Buster Call or Aokiji getting his whip though. Cover-ups. He turned a page and grinned. Sweet. New bounties are up. Everyone, get your S over here. Everyone not sitting at the table immediately scrambled over and gawked at the paper. Straw Hat Pirates dead or alive. Cotton Candy Lover. Chopper Pet 50 Belly. Cat Burglar. Nami 18 million Belly. King of Snipers. Sogeking 30 million Belly. Cyborg. Frankie 44 million inches Blackleg. Sanji 77 million Belly. Devil's Child. Nico Robin 80 million Belly. Pirate Hunter. Zoro 120 million Belly. Straw Hat. Luffy 300 million Belly. Foxhound Pirates dead or alive. Armory Mistress. Nojiko 15 million inches Lord of Iijutsu. Johnny 40 million Belly. Cleaver. Yosaku 65 million Belly. Human Albatross. Miss Valentine 83 million Belly. The Plague. Soren 251 million Belly. God Sage of Anarchy. Uzumaki Naruto 395 million Belly alive. Nefertari Vivi must be alive. Alive and in good health and condition, 150 million Belly. The first to react to the new bounties was Naruto, who abruptly stood up and threw his fists into the air in victory. Woo. It Luffy, I'm still better than you. Almost 100 million Belly better than you. And I got a new picture that doesn't make me look like AM murderer, Datbayo. Step your debauchery up. Naruto's bounty picture was of him in Water 7, taken a few days ago from when he ran into Garp and the other Marines. Aw man. Luffy shouted in defeat. Mine increased, but Naruto's did too. So unfair. Murat pumped her fist in victory. Yes, I didn't get a bounty. You didn't really fight. Nojiko pointed out. I don't know whether to be scared that I have a bounty, or upset and competitive that mine is the lowest. Yep. Third place. Soren said victoriously. Not quite first, but sure as ain't the worst. While Chopper was crying over only being worth 50 Belly, and Yosaku and Johnny were crying over how their combined bounties still didn't equal Zoro's, Sanji was looking at his bounty and was fuming at his picture. It wasn't a portrait like everyone else had for theirs, it was a terrible artist's rendering of his appearance. What the is this type poster? There's nothing about this that brings out my natural, raw sex appeal. Nami had exaggerated cascading tears streaming down her face. I have a bounty. I don't want a bounty. I mean, I look cute in the picture and everything, but I still don't want a bounty. Vivi sighed once she saw her bounty. I guess Naruto was right about me not fighting. They don't want to defeat me, but wow, that's a lot of money for me. Miss Valentine frowned at her bounty before laughing. It's not really the most flattering epithet I've ever seen, but I've seen worse. I'll take it, I guess. Yes. I knew I was awesome and now the world knows even more than they already did. Naruto said, standing on the table with manly tears of victory pouring from his eyes as he started getting rather overbearing to a lot of the people around him. Now someone go get the God Sage of Anarchy a god drink, it's a celebration. A toast to my shinobi swagger. Bang. Bullets are not a beverage, Noji-chan. Naruto said from across the room as a log dropped to the floor with a bullet lodged in it. She let out a sigh and holstered her pistol. And we're right back to normal again, she said, shaking her head with a smile on her face. Chapter 29. The show must go on. Naruto headed back out to the nearby island of St. Poplar to find the CP9 group. He promised he would head back their way soon, and he was a man of his word. Hopefully they hadn't decided to clear out and they decided to stay and see what he had to talk to them about. He no longer held any ill will against them. They were following orders. It was no different than the shinobi of any hidden village. To be upset with them would have been petty, especially after they had all been defeated thoroughly already. Hopefully that same regard extended from them to him. All he wanted was Robin back. He had taken her, and that was that. There shouldn't have been any more conflict between them. If they were anything like him in the aspect of the mission being a mission and nothing more, then the talk should have been fine for them to have. Thinking this to himself, Naruto walked through the town he had been to a few days prior. No one came with him because he hadn't told anyone where he intended to go. After the revelation of the new bounties, Naruto set out on his own while the Straw Hat crew headed to where their new ship was being built by Frankie. Thinking of that, he couldn't help but be excited to get back out on the seas on his new, improved ship. Vivi was usually so excited to tell him about what she had seen he almost felt bad when he swowed her down and instructed her not to tell him anything. It was rather funny though to see the young princess noticeably fidget whenever she felt the need to talk about the ship. With that thought out of the way, Naruto looked around the streets filled with people for any sign of CP9, maybe they did leave after all. I mean, I came back to the same place I found them before, that should have been the first place they waited for me. So it is you after all. Naruto turned around to find Kaku standing there with his hands in his pockets. I thought that Jabura and Bluno were just as shocked and having flashbacks after seeing someone that looked like you, but it really is you. In the flesh. Naruto said in confirmation, is Rob Lucci healed yet? He's conscious, and after he woke up he was willing to hear what you had to say. Hence why we're still here. Kaku explained, come with me. He said as he began to lead Naruto through the town, we're not going to ambush you if that's what you're thinking. I know you aren't. Naruto replied in an even-toned manner, why would you? You guys got blamed for the Enies lobby thing just as badly as my crew and the Straw Hats. Fighting me wouldn't do anything about that. Spandam got away. Kaku said with a hint of anger in his voice, he's horribly wounded, but he was able to pin the entire situation on us. Blaming us for his calling in of the Buster Call. He's getting off scot-free. It makes me sick, the man isn't even a soldier, he's a suit. And for following orders and putting our bodies in jeopardy, what did we get in return after all those years of work? Nothing but a knife in the back. Naruto nodded as he let the man vent. It was clear that he hadn't been able to complain about anything for years. Naruto rubbed his chin, what if I said I wanted to help you guys out? Kaku gave him a disbelieving look, hey, think what you want. Just wait until I say something first before you start making up your mind. Kaku nodded wordlessly and proceeded to lead Naruto to a small hospital. Once inside they immediately made their way to Rob Lucci, who was surrounded by the other members of CP9, all of them looking at him warily. Kumadori pointed at Naruto dramatically, did you search him before you came inside Kaku? Yo-yo. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked at everyone else in the room. You do know that if I wanted to do something to you all I wouldn't need weapons to pull it off, right? I don't even have any on me. I left everything back at Water 7 as a show of good faith except for what I came to give you. Khalifa nodded before pointing at him and speaking in a dry manner, that's sexual harassment. Naruto face faulted on the ground and picked himself up, pointing back at her and getting ready to yell before he thought about it. I guess that last line could be sexual harassment, I don't know. Anyway, who cares? That's not why I'm here. He then got down to business, what are you guys planning to do once you all get ready to leave? Lucci immediately spoke up from his hospital bed, we're not going to join your crew. He said, the pigeon on his shoulder shaking its head as well, your goals and ours do not coincide. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, I kind of figured you would say that so I brought this. He said, reaching into his sage coat pocket which put everyone in the room on the defensive, calm down. Naruto exclaimed before slowly drawing his hand out of his pocket, yes, this is a weapon, but it's a gift. He finally removed it all the way to reveal a Hiraishin kunai. Jabura took it from his grasp and studied it. This is that strange knife you threw at the Tower of Justice that we blocked. It's just a super speed beacon, isn't it? Nope. Naruto said with a grin on his face. It is a beacon though. This allows me to find you anywhere in the world and teleport to your location. No matter where it is, I'll be there in only a moment. If you throw it to the ground or something like that, it sends me a signal that you want my help or whatever, and I'll be right there. Lucci looked at the unassuming weapon, not even surprised at this point after hearing from Bluno of what Naruto was capable of and even seeing some of it himself while he fought Luffy. Why would you do this? He decided to ask instead, shouldn't you want revenge? Why would I want that? Naruto said in return, we won. We got everyone back safe and sound, and other than a few injuries that everyone's recovered from by now, for the most part nothing happened because of you. You guys were following orders. I understand, I used to have to follow orders too. Bluno looked at him in surprise. You were a marine once. No. Naruto said, shaking his head, I never worked for the world government, but my job was a lot like yours in a bunch of ways. A frown then came to his face. I was never betrayed by my superiors though. So, what? Lucci said, still not convinced of what Naruto wanted. Do you want us to sail under your colors or something along those lines? Do you expect us to follow your orders? Tell me what it is you want from us. Naruto visibly frowned at Lucci's suspicion, but he guessed that the man had a point. He had been an operative in an organization of spies and ins before now. No, none of that. It's just that you guys remind me of me, I guess. He chuckled when they all looked at him strangely. Really? In a manner of speaking, I was kind of cast out of the military system of my home continent. After I left my home, it didn't take long for people around the continent to forget my character, but that was mostly the next generation settling in. Eventually every military program didn't trust me, but were still wary of me, so no one ever attacked me or tried to use me. Still, it's not too different if I actually sat back and explained it to you. He extended his hand to Jabura. If you don't want it, then just give it back. I'm not going to make you guys want to befriend me. Jabura looked over at Lucci to get an indication of what he was to do. Lucci closed his eyes before speaking. Fine Uzumaki Naruto. With our luck currently not any better off than yours as fugitives of the world government, we'll accept your weapon. He opened his eyes and locked them directly with Naruto. Do not betray us, Uzumaki. We already have one person on our hit list that we intend to destroy. Do not make us switch targets to you once our revenge is complete. Naruto raised his hands into the air and started to back away. Hey, you're thinking of the wrong guy if you think I'd do something like that. But one thing that I need to say, don't let that revenge thing consume you. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then don't let warfare and anger be the thing people remember you for once you're gone. Once he got near the door, he turned around, stopping right before walking out of the room. With the kunai, you guys can reach me anytime. Call me when you guys decide to get yourselves out of here. We can talk more then, he said as he walked away. Khalifa turned her attention away from the now vacant doorway to Lucci. So now we're supposed to be allies of the Foxhound pirates. Why not? Lucci said, taking the Hiraishin kunai away from Jabura. We're already criminals. Why not align ourselves with the strongest one? Water 7. Doc 2. In a flash of yellow, Naruto appeared, scratching his neck and yawning in a lazy manner. Yeah. Did someone call me? Before he could say anything, his left arm was glomped by Vivi and he found himself being dragged. What the? The ship is done. Vivi chirped happily. That means that you can't avoid it anymore. I'm showing it to you, and you can't give me any excuses this time. Behind them both, Karu was helping her by shoving Naruto along with his head and beak. Okay, Naruto said, laughing at how fired up she seemed to be about it. What about everyone else? Aren't you going to get them? They're already here, she replied. Now come on. You didn't show up right when I threw the kunai. What were you doing? She asked, giving him a look of suspicion. Naruto looked away from Vivi. Stuff. He heard her growl at him slightly and rolled his eyes. I'll tell you all later. You guys have to hear it anyway. But enough. Where's my ship? Is it bad? Vivi smiled as she pulled him around a corner and pointed out where the finished ship was sitting in the water. You tell me. Naruto's pupils dilated and he let out a girlish shriek. Picking up both Vivi and Karu, he ran towards the ship as quickly as he could and ran up the side, landing on the deck where he immediately noticed a change he had instructed. Holy. He actually got soil and GR put in. I was just being in hole when I wrote that down. GR ran all over the deck and stopped at the doors to the hold and the stairs. However, even on the upper levels of the ship, around the back and at the helm, there was GR. Stanley appeared from the inside of the ship when he heard Naruto scream like a girl. I followed her every order to a T, Mr. Uzumaki. You get her money's worth with me. That was easy compared to a few other requests. Naruto looked up and grinned at the pattern that had been inscribed on the front and back of the sails. Ah, that's perfect. They're all flawless the way I needed them to be. Now I can speed the ship up in a safer way with wind chakra and do other stuff. He looked over at Stanley. Did you do what I told you to with the masts? Ah, he said, scratching his head. I don't know why you requested a hollow place in the masts though. And the holes in it. Naruto grinned. This is why. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a tangerine as he walked over to one of the masts and placed his hand holding the tangerine against it. Noji-chan is going to love this, he said as he started making hand seals. Vivi tilted her head in confusion. What are you do? Shish. Naruto shushed Vivi as he held the snake hand seal. I need to concentrate or I'm going to mess the mast up and we're going to have to wait here until it can be fixed. Now, Mokuden Haijutsu. Jukai Kuden would release secret technique. Nativity of a world of trees. Naruto shut his eyes and focused as hard as he could. He couldn't let a lack of control over the Mokuden destroy his ship, but his crazy idea needed to be done now. Vivi looked at the mast as the sounds of bark crackling drew her attention. No way. The hollow inside of the mast filled up with a tree and the holes coming through were filled with large, thick branches that quickly grew leaves and tangerines on them. The hollow top of the mast up at the crow's nest had the top of the tree peek out and go up several more feet before forming a canopy over the crow's nest. Vivi and Stanley stood speechless as Naruto walked over to the other mast and did the same. He grew a tree on the inside of a mast. His job complete, Naruto walked back over to Vivi and Stanley, dusting his hands off, and that's why I wanted it hollow. From the hold of the ship, the others came outside and looked at the trees that Naruto had sprouted. Nojiko looked up and saw the tangerines hanging off of the end of the branches and her jaw dropped. Naruto-kun, did you? Yep. He said with a grin before Nojiko ran up to him and threw her arms around his neck to give him a miv. I might have tried something like that sooner, but my Mokuden control S. If I just went ahead and tried it without a base and an outline like the mast, I probably would have destroyed the ship. He looked at Stanley. You've still got the flag of the crew, right? Murat went inside and handed it to him. Sweet. The others watched Naruto run up the side of the mast, disappearing into the leaves of the branches and continuing on up towards the top. From the smile on his face, he seemed to be loving things as they were. Once he reached the top of the mast and the top of the canopy his trees had formed, he planted the flag in the top firmly and headed back down. Once he made it back down, a huge smile still on his face, Naruto looked at everyone else. Well, come on, what else? Show me the place. At the back of the ship there was a formal sparring ground as per Naruto's directions, triple reinforced and with actual boulders set up around as natural obstacles. Seeing that made Naruto wonder if he could try and grow a tree or two back there as well. Maybe when he got more control. The figurehead of the ship was a featureless face with a pair of angry Rinnegan eyes and a sizable tube between them both that led up to the helm of the ship. This was so Naruto could aim certain attacks out of the front of the ship in a focused pattern. On the sides of the deck sat the cannons, same as always, with spaces to hold cannonballs in case of battle. Inside of the ship, the first room, just as before, was the common area, with walls painted with the Foxhound Pirates Jolly Roger. With a door off to the side leading to the captain's quarters, aka Naruto's room, and a hallway leading to the other rooms on that floor of the hold that belonged to the others, with many extras still vacant in case of more crew members. The room had been extended and given more space for couches, side tables, and a larger table that held a known map of the world and would keep the route that the ship was currently on. It also held the 2 den mushi that Naruto had salvaged from the sea train and bookcases that were currently empty. Instead of the kitchen being one with the common area, it was now a separate room directly off to the side with more space and devices for Miss Valentine to use, as well as a larger refrigerator and freezer to go with a large pantry, all fully stocked. There was also a place to keep live fish so that they would have a small stockpile of fresh fish when they wanted it. Like always, Naruto's room had the largest window of them all, spanning the entire back wall of the room. On a desk sat all of his fuinjutsu supplies as well as current projects. There was no need to hide them, he was the only one that comprehended what they were. In one corner of the room sat a pole that Naruto would sit atop, balancing on a board, to train his ability in Sage mode. There was also a Den Den Mushi that was attached to an intercom system of sorts. Naruto could project a message to one room, multiple rooms, or all rooms on the ship if he needed to. Still stabbed into the headboard of his bed was a single Hiraishin kunai, and each of his remaining Hiraishin kunai were pinned up on the wall behind a framed case. Nojiko's wall had a display for all of her guns and places to keep the ammunition for the respective guns. She even had targets on her walls for shooting it in her leisure if she was bored. Attached to Nojiko's quaint room was a small side room that held a desk, a wall full of maps, and all of the things she would need to navigate, as well as a window to see outside. Mirai's room had an office attached to it that would be the place where the others would be treated. It contained all of her medical equipment as well as a bunch of medical technology that Naruto was able to procure for her on his dollar. Soren's room had a rack against one of the walls that held 3 large barrels off of the ground with a tap for each. One contained lemon juice, the second contained the booze of his choice, and the third contained water, for him to stay hydrated and so that he could keep his acidic levels high, and so that he could get smashed in the comfort of his own room. Johnny and Yosuke's rooms were attached together, as a joke at first by Naruto, but the two didn't seem to have any problems with this. Therefore he kept that aspect as it was. Miss Valentine's room contained a rather lavish bed, as per her request to Naruto in the past that he finally had the opportunity to fulfill. She also had a rather large walk-in closet for the clothes that she enjoyed purchasing when she had money and when they were in new areas. Vivi's room had beds for both her and Karu. She also had a display for her jewelry from her home that she brought with her. And as a joke that Naruto got a good 5 minutes of laughing on the floor out of, and Vivi got a good 5 minutes of stomping on a laughing Naruto who was on the floor out of, she had a long metal pole in the center of the room leading from the floor to the ceiling. Down in the lower levels, they now had a brig for prisoners, and there was even a room for interrogation, with a one-way mirror and a tiny observation room on the other side. The cargo area doubled as an armory for extra weapons and cannonballs and was also the area where clothes would be washed. On the third lowest level, and the bottom level of the ship, there was a formal dojo-like setting, probably for Naruto to be able to meditate in, or maybe for more tame training methods that required control instead. In this area there sat the bottom of the trees Naruto had grown, rooted firmly to the floor securely. Due to the ship having been rebuilt with Naruto's Mokuden generated wood it merged with it, with only faint root marks on the floor. This was news to Naruto, and welcome news, because if the ship hadn't incurred incredible damage in areas that were built with the triple tough Mokuden, chances were he could regenerate it if he could reach the area. Also on this floor at the back of the ship was a room held a back door only Naruto had the key to open, a wet dock that could double as a swimming area and a small ship that was to be used instead of Naruto having to run the entire crew ashore by water walking whenever they needed to head towards land. Kami. Naruto yelled to the sky as he walked back outside and lay down on the GR of the deck, basking in the slight shade of the trees in the mast. It's so awesome. Worth every bit I paid for it. He sat up and looked at Stanley. Did you put in the... Ah. Stanley said, proud that Naruto thoroughly enjoyed his work on his ship. Everything as ye requested. I would wait until ye were out on the open ocean to test it however. He warned. Naruto's eyes widened. You put that in too. I was really just messing with you the time when I put that in the plans. Stanley nodded. Through the eyes of the figurehead it is. He grinned at Naruto. Don't look so shocked. You gave me the designs to those seals yours. I simply put 'em where ye requested 'em. One behind each eye, and a trail that connects to the helm. There should be one of a kick now so watch it. Naruto smirked. I will. It should be one of a chakra monster though. Good thing only I can use it. Soren crossed his arms as he walked around the deck and leaned against the mast under some of the shade, so it's time to go. Finally. We've been here for way too long you know, I'm getting kind of stir crazy just doing nothing. The others all seemed to echo that sentiment. A rest was nice but there was a time and a place to do so, and in this instance it had Ped. Yeah, Naruto said, kipping back up off of his back to his feet, it's definitely time to go. I think we've overstayed our welcome here anyway. He looked at Nojiko, did it reset yet? The navigator of his ship nodded, as of 2 days ago Naruto-kun. We can leave whenever you're ready. That's good. They all turned their attention towards the end of the ship where Polly stood, leaning against the railing with a cigar in his mouth, because Garp is back. Apparently he was sent back after Luffy. He noticed the apprehensive looks on their faces. Don't worry. Their ship is fixed and they got away clean. Miss Valentine sighed in relief before pouting. They never even said goodbye. Naruto shrugged. Whatever. We can call them when we get out of here and about it then. Who's ready to roll? He asked everyone, getting a round of cheers from the more exuberant members of the crew. Good, because I'm not getting busted today, and I don't feel like wrecking the city, again. Stanley walked up to Naruto and grabbed his hand in a firm shake. Well, I have to say, lad, it was a blast working on Earthship for ye. Have fun working with everything ye got installed that we didn't get ta, show ye. The plans are in quarters for when ye want ta, read them. Naruto returned the handshake happily. We'll be back at some point, I'm sure. Then you can see how well your work went for yourself. Until then though. He jumped towards the helm and took the wheel. It's time to get thee out of here. Stanley laughed loudly and jumped off of the ship. Nojiko ran to the side and yelled down to him, Stanley, can you lower us down to the ocean from here? No need. Naruto said to her from his spot at the front, confusing her. Even if he did that we'd be surrounded. Nah, this way's going to be better. His grin turned manic, we're going right off of the edge. Murat, having been there long enough to know that he really wasn't bluffing about this fact, and being the only one that was smart enough to panic at the moment, ran inside to her room. If she was going to die, she was going to die in her new digs. Soren walked up to Naruto and smacked him one hard on the back of the head. What in the is wrong with you? We're going to die, you idiot. No, we're not. Naruto grumbled back, holding the rising bump on his skull. Valentine-chan, if you could. You're going to have to time this good. Miss Valentine nodded with a smile and kneeled down on the deck, focusing intently. Kilo Henkin kilogram conversion ready for use, Naruto. What did she just do? Nojiko asked as they came to the edge of the upper district, overlooking the entire city of Water 7 that they would get a close-up view of when they crashed into it. Naruto explained, my dear Valentine is about to make us light enough, with the exception of the seastone bottom and everything inside, to float our S out of here. He pointed up at the sails. Those are wind seals, and I can activate them from right here by design. In the water they'll let us gain speed easier without me having to exhaust myself just for a little push. But for right now, with that he channeled his chakra to the wheel and the ship steadily began picking up speed until it went over the edge. Everyone with the exception of Naruto and Miss Valentine, who were both laughing at everyone else, shut their eyes and screamed at the top of their lungs as the ship went over, but realized that they were still upright and weren't falling to their deaths yet. Yosaku opened his eyes. Wait, we're not dead yet. He ran to the edge. We're flying. Not flying. Naruto said from his place behind the wheel, floating. There's a difference. Not too long from now we're going to come down into the sea, but for now we're drifting through the air thanks to my awesome seal design defeats, ship ideas, and Valentine-chan's powers. Soren looked over the edge and saw that they were floating directly over the marine ships that had the area surrounded. Ha. My. You can't catch me, I hang out with lunatics. And you can never take a pair of lunatics alive, let alone an entire crew of them. At least one of them always has some suicidal plan that should never work in a million years but always does. God, I love this crew, I need a drink. He yelled, walking away with his hands held up in victory. I'm not a lunatic. Nojiko pouted. You will be. Everyone else said simultaneously as if it was a fact that simply hadn't come to pee yet. On the marine ship in the bay, Garp looked up in the air at the MIV vessel flying overhead. He had just seen Luffy and his crew escape from them in a similar manner, only now it actually appeared to be flying. Tell me if I'm wrong or not, but ships don't usually fly, do they? He asked his entire crew, who were all looking up, stunned. Strange, because I swear I've seen that twice today, so what do we do? He asked the man laying in a lawn chair nearby. Aokiji, covered from head to toe in bandages, pulled his sleeping mask up to look up at the ship that was flying over them. Nothing. The mission was to pick me up and get your grandson, not Uzumaki Naruto. They didn't even know he was still here so it can slide. But then Sengoku would just some more, and I kind of don't want to hear that again. I could just hit him with this. Garp suggested, tossing a cannonball up and down in his hand as if it were a baseball, that would shoot him down. Aokiji shook his head and pulled his mask back down. At this range it would never even get close. You need to be closer for a projectile like that to even have a fighting chance of hitting him. Garp shrugged and took aim at the airborne ship, Genkatsu Ryusei Iron Fist Meteor. He hurled the cannonball into the air as if it weighed next to nothing and watched as it sailed into the air towards the natural disaster. A strong gust of wind flew from the ship and hit the cannonball, slowing and eventually stopping its momentum in the air and forcing it to plummet back down into the water as the ship continued to float on out of range. Aokiji didn't even bother taking his sleeping mask off to watch it happen, told Yu. Garp stared at the ship before he began to laugh. It looks like my grandson aligned himself with a strong guy, didn't he? He didn't even need Luffy's help to get away. Aokiji didn't say anything out loud as Garp continued to laugh, more like Luffy didn't need his help to get away. Aokiji said to himself before letting out a yawn, oh well. Fighting him again now would only bring up the same result. We'll have our rematch Uzumaki Naruto. The natural disaster finally landed back on the surface of the water rather gently and the ship returned to its normal weight as it touched the ocean. And that's how you do that. Naruto said, rather pleased with how they got away. He turned away from the wheel to Miss Valentine, who was also rather pleased with her performance. You're getting good with your powers. Thank you, Valentine-chan, he said, holding her and giving her a light. That was impressive. Everyone turned to see that Polly was still on their ship. Johnny palmed his face. Aw man. Now we have to turn around and go back, we took Polly. You idiots. Polly said, shaking his head as he walked towards Naruto. I'm not on here by mistake. I'm here because I want to come with you. You what? Naruto asked him, why would you want to come with me? Polly grumbled, I would have come to you about this before, but you disappeared that day you were at Galila HQ and I wasn't able to find you again. We had to work on the ship for the Straw Hat Kid. He walked up to Naruto, who let Miss Valentine go in case trouble was about to start. What kind of shipwright can say they've never been on a ship? He let out a laugh. Iceberg was going to start grooming me for vice president. I don't think I'd be any good at a job like that yet. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And what exactly do you think coming with us will do for you? A leader needs to know how to operate under duress. Polly started, a leader needs to know how to keep his cool and look at situations from enough sides to act properly. He pointed at himself. When Iceberg went down because of those CP9 guys, I didn't do that. I blamed all the wrong people. I didn't even bother trying to figure out or solve anything. I can't lead like that. He then switched his point over to Naruto, but you and that kid Luffy. When you headed into Eni's lobby you two never panicked, and you seemed to have the way out of an impossible situation. That was an impressive thing for me to see. He then smirked, besides, I can't let that idiot Frankie be the only one that goes out on sea as shipwright. Miss Valentine put her hands on her hips, you can't just join our crew like that. You just told us you were joining and that was that, it doesn't work like that. Naruto shrugged, I forced two of you to be here so why not the other way around for once? He said in good humor, alright fine. Go pick a room, and I hope that you can deal with all of us because there's no learning curve to being on this crew. I'll manage. Polly said with a smile until he turned around and looked at Miss Valentine. You shouldn't show so much leg with your outfits, that's not respectable. He then pointed at Vivi. How old are you? 16. Dress like a 16-year-old should girl. Ignoring the rather offended faces of the two girls he then looked at Nojiko and almost lost it, and you. You show too much cleavage with your clothes, and too much of your body. And why do your pants ride so low on your hips? Show some decency. Nojiko aimed one of her pistols and growled angrily, just go get your room before I initiate you properly. She finished with a rather evil smirk. Yosaku moved up to Polly's side and hissed a low whisper, pissed. Hey. She means she's going to shoot at you. Polly walked away with a deadpan look on his face. Thanks, I never would have cracked that code if it weren't for you. He said sarcastically. Yosaku didn't get the sarcasm though, and was content that he had done his good deed for the day. Naruto simply grinned as he turned his attention back to the steering wheel. You see Noji-chan. Threatening people with casual violence from firearms isn't exactly the sign of a sane person. Admit that you're slowly being driven insane with the rest of us. Yeah. Miss Valentine nodded in fervent agreement, acknowledging that you're going crazy helps you enjoy it more. Nojiko just stared at them both blankly before turning around and heading inside. I'm taking a nap. The heading is steady east-northeast. I'll check progress later when I wake up. You can't sleep the crazy away, Noji-chan. Naruto yelled before dodging a gunswow directed at him. You can't shoot it away either. You are the crazy in my life. She snapped back before heading to her room. A few days later, it was night, and Naruto was heading out to the deck to create some cage bunchen to man the ship for the graveyard shift. He was also simultaneously in the middle of a conversation on the Den Den Mushi, no Luffy. I will not Haration over so that I can break into Sanji's refrigerator for you. Act like a ninja and just steal the combination, that's what I do. I've got more important things to do right now. Like what? Like not help you eat your entire ship out of house and home. Naruto snapped at him over the line before calming down and compromising. Until you get ramen I will not help you steal food, I can get into my own food and eat that instead. There's less of a chance of me getting beat up that way. Okay. Luffy said in a dejected manner until someone else's voice came over the line. Hey Naruto, Usopp said he has something for you. Naruto frowned. You guys are going to wear me out with the Haration, aren't you? He said before breaking into a smile. Oh well, I wouldn't have given it to you if I didn't want you to use it. Just give me a second to set up my night staff. Hanging up the Den Den Mushi and putting it back inside, he went outside once more and created a staff of 20. You guys know what to do. Yes boss. Naruto nodded in satisfaction. His clones seemed unusually obedient tonight. None of them smarted off at him like they usually did. If anyone comes looking for me, tell them I'm with the Straw Hats and I'll be back in a bit. With that, he disappeared in a flash. Aboard the Thousand Sunny, Naruto appeared on the new Straw Hat ship in a flash of yellow with his arms crossed as he looked around the new vessel. Huh, nice place. Whoa. The group that had aimed to actually see the technique up close firsthand, Luffy, Chopper, Usopp, and Robin, were rather impressed. Apparently seeing it from a distance and seeing it right in front of their faces as clear as day were two different things. Chopper looked at him with stars in his eyes. That's so cool, Naruto. Naruto scratched his hair. I guess so. But you guys have seen me do that before, haven't you? Luffy shook his head eagerly. Not from as far away as you were when you did it. Unless, he then got a suspicious look on his face and used his powers to get up to the crow's nest for a quick look around. Nope. Your ship's nowhere near us. It's still awesome. Naruto looked at the small knife stabbed into the ground and noticed that they had GR just like his ship. It's time-space manipulation. I also barely understand how it works, just that it does work. You guys better take care of this though. He said about the kunai. Robin walked over and picked it up. I think I'll keep a hold of it myself. Or do you really want Luffy to keep it? She asked with a smile. Naruto looked up at the straw hat wearing boy waving at him from the crow's nest and back to Robin. Yeah, you keep it. After all, I trust you, Robin-chan. He said, teasing her slightly before yelping in shock. He could have sworn that something just pinched him on the, did you? I don't know what you're talking about, Naruto. Robin said as she walked away back inside, making a show of swaying her hips as she did so. Not that anyone else besides Naruto really got the gist of the conversation or Robin's mannerisms as she left. Naruto just stared after her until she disappeared from his sight. He then remembered why he had come to their ship in the first place. Oh yeah. Usopp, what did you want to give me? Usopp smiled as he held something behind his back. Well, Nojiko found me after everything that happened and told me about her fight with the CP9 lady and how she probably wouldn't have gotten so hurt if she were faster, since unlike Nami she didn't have illusions to attract attention and attacks away from her. So I thought about it and I found a way to help her out. Naruto had to internally agree. Even with his help there was only so much speed she could get. She was so much better than she was when she first got on the ship that it wasn't funny, but that wouldn't cut it going forward from here on out. She wouldn't get better fast enough in that department for it to be significant. At least with Johnny he was already fast and his body was preconditioned for the harsh training he made him do. And Vivi, while she wasn't fast, was impulsively sudden. Her speed was in nimble bursts. If she needed speed, she had Karu for that. Naruto was curious as to what Usopp had. After all, he had invented Nami's weapon, he had also made his own, and those were rather impressive tools. They might have become rather legendary weapons in the elemental nations with time. Alright Usopp, what do you have? Usopp seemed even more excited that Naruto had an interest in what he had to show him. Well, when we were up on Skypia, there was this guy that moved fast using a pair of these. From his back he revealed a pair of what looked like metal U's with a space for a woman's size foot in each. Skates? Naruto asked with a tilt of his head. That's kind of dangerous, isn't it? And unless Noji-chan can build a ton of momentum, wouldn't those be more of a bother than anything? Usopp shook his head and chuckled. Waver skates. These are really versatile, Naruto. When these are active, she won't even be touching the ground. She'll hover slightly above it and move that way. And they're super fast at top speed. He pointed to a S-looking thing that was on each side and also seemed to serve the purpose of helping to keep the foot secure in the skates. These are jet dials. Dials are what I used to make my and Nami's weapons better. I couldn't finish these though until I had Frankie's help. That was all Naruto needed to hear after the performance he had seen the weapons give. Usopp extended the waver skates to Naruto, who took them graciously. I can't really tell her how to use them since I don't know how, but once she learns how, I know she'll love them. If she needs help, I would ask Nami. She has a waver, but it's not anything like these. Thanks Usopp, Naruto said earnestly. That was really cool of him to help Nojiko out like that. Naruto wasn't sure how he was going to do it, but Usopp went ahead and solved an issue for him, just like that. Really? I don't know how I can repay you. Usopp waved it off casually. Don't worry about it. If anything, I'm the one repaying you. You helped save my village and you helped me out that night in Water 7 when I needed to come to a decision. If this means we're even, then it's a small price to pay. Just make sure that when she gets good on them, Nojiko comes and thanks the great Usopp-sama for his engineering defeats. You've got it. Naruto said with a grin. She's going to love these. 2 days later, Natural Disaster Dojo. I hate these things. Nojiko exclaimed, sitting on the ground in a heap, breathing heavily and glaring at the waver skates. It's been 2 days and all I know how to do is stand up straight on these things. Falling hurts. Nojiko now wore a white t-shirt that only went as far down as right above her navel. Over that she wore a red leather jacket that she left open. She also wore gray leggings that only reached her thighs, and over that she had on a red leather mini skirt and her usual holsters that she always wore with her around her waist and over her back. Naruto, who had been sitting in on her practice and meditating until her loud shout, opened his eyes and smirked at her. Do you want me to the boo-boo and make it all better? Please say yes. Maybe later, Naruto-kun, she said under her breath. I'm angry right now. Naruto raised his hand into the air. I don't really care. Angry sex is awesome sex and it will calm you down and clear your head, because you'll have vented on me. I don't mind, I promise. Of course you wouldn't, she said, rolling her eyes as she stood back up. I just want to try this a few more times. Activating the skates again, in a burst of air they levitated her roughly 6 inches off of the ground. I can feel how strong these are just from lifting off. Naruto sighed from his meditative position. Try doing what I said, Noji-chan. Take it slow. You already know how to go forward. Going back should be the exact opposite, and turning your feet in the right direction should be how you turn. I don't need to learn how to creep along in slow motion, Naruto-kun. She said, getting used to her footing before trying anything. I need to be able to move and evade. I need to be fast. Khalifa tore me apart because I couldn't get away even though I could see her with my haki. After everything had gone down at Eni's lobby, she finally understood, after an explanation from Soren, what her ability to see things in battle before they happened were. However, it was useless if she still couldn't avoid the things she could see coming. Naruto mumbled about how at this point she might as well have the red, spinny eyes of evil, whatever those were. Walk before you run. He said to her, before a shinobi learns to water walk, they learn to tree walk first, and before they learn how to do that, they learn how to channel chakra to their feet in the first place. It's a foundation that you build on. Now glide in slow motion or I'm going start trial by fire if you remember exactly what that entails. Nojiko paled slightly. Naruto hadn't thrown anything at her in quite a while and she had been enjoying it. No need to go back to those days of terror again. Nojiko slowly pressed down with her toes, tilting the waver skates forward ever so slightly, getting a harsh jerk out of them that almost knocked her down, but after letting up immediately she caught her balance and stayed upright. Keep going, Naruto said encouragingly, then when you can handle that, go a little faster. You don't need to go all out with them right now, especially if you can't handle it. He stood up and walked over to her, at least you have the option of taking it slow. When I was learning Hiraishin I didn't. Or talking years of me hitting solid objects flying out of a wormhole I ripped in time-space. Not really fun. He walked 50 feet in front of her and turned to stop where he sat back down on the ground to meditate there instead. You can stop for the day when you can reach me from there without falling. If you fall you have to start again from right there, and I'll know if you don't. Nojiko nodded and looked down at her feet. Okay, just get 50 feet over to Naruto-kun. That shouldn't be so hard, right? Just bit by bit. And in a series of jerky forward movements she did make it over in her first try, bringing a smile to her face. Good. Naruto said, standing back up. You can stop for today. The next time though, I want you to do it in one fluid motion. No stopping and starting like you just did. He gave her a on the cheek as she deactivated the skates. You've got to crawl before you can even walk, Noji-chan. She nodded and took the skates off of her feet, placing them securely on her belt holster, each tucked around a pistol, before calling out to him, Naruto-kun. Will you still the boo-boo? She said, trying to give him puppy dog eyes as she followed him out. Alabasta Alubarna Palace. King Cobra crumpled the paper in his hands after reading the new bounties of the Straw Hat and Foxhound pirates and finding that Vivi had her own sizable bounty for her return. Alive they say, he thought to himself, as if what they will do to my daughter and force me to do with my country would be any more humane than allowing her brought to them dead. If she's rescued, she won't be coming home. He then remembered the bounties of Naruto and all of the other Foxhound pirates and remembered the papers saying that they were allies of the Straw Hat pirates, and he smirked. Good luck trying to get her away from them though, my dear daughter. You have found yourself some reliable company. The next day on deck of the natural disaster, today was such a nice day out that the entire crew decided to rest up outside. Everyone except for two people, Naruto and Vivi, as he was still in the midst of conditioning her the way he wanted her to be. Vivi wore a light green turtleneck top with no sleeves and a white skirt to go with her usual white high-heeled boots. Jump, he ordered as he manipulated the wires around her on the ground. Once she was in the air he brandished a harmless wooden set of shuriken, parry. He ordered as he threw them at her. The Alabastan princess used her unique weapons to cut them in half and out of the sky. Before she even hit the ground, Naruto gave her another order without missing a beat, jump again. Vivi did so immediately and noticed him prepared to trap her once she landed again, so thinking quickly, she slung out one of her long chains of sharp jewels and stuck the end of them into the mast to keep herself from falling into Naruto's trap. What about fighting fair, Naruto? A bunch of fighting fair, was his eloquent response. Your enemy isn't going to fight fair. And now that I know you can do that, I'm going to stop going so easy on you. Now get up that mast higher, Vivi Heim. He said, rapidly moving his fingers to reveal that he actually had wire that went up that high as well. Vivi yelped in fright as she saw the glare off of the wires from the sun and started going higher with a combination of jumping up the side with her legs and keeping a hold of the mast with her weapons. Naruto looked over to Murat, who was sitting against Funkfried in elephant form. She was on standby in case Naruto got Vivi hurt. She's really doing well. Look at that. Vivi at this point found her way to one of the branches in the mast and sat down in it, sticking her out at Naruto and pulling her eyelid down at him. I never even taught her any of that. The girl's a natural, almost like a ninja, I'd say. He said to the medic before yelling up to Vivi, you think you're safe? You'd better hope I don't come up there. I'll show you how safe you are. He let out a chuckle when he saw Vivi shake her head fearfully. Murat let out a small laugh as she continued to lean against her snoozing elephant casually. I'm glad I don't fight. She glared at him when she noticed him looking at her intently. I'm not going to be fighting. Forget it right now. I swear, I'll do terrible things to you like drug your food if you start the torture you call training with me. Funkfried cracked an eye to see what his master was sounding so angry about, but after making eye contact with Naruto he didn't really care anymore and tried to go back to sleep. Murat still wore her brown boots with white medical crosses on them, but now she had on a short-sleeved white button-up shirt that was unbuttoned enough to show cleavage and a jean skirt. Naruto waved off her threat and picked his ear. "Ma, I'll just build up an immunity to whatever you use on me after a few times." He formed a cage bunshin and yelled up at the young princess, "New game Vivi Heim. The game is to survive the cage bunshin until 5 minutes run out. He'll dispel automatically, but if you can beat him I'll accept that too." The clone cracked his knuckles and grinned fairly up at Vivi before running towards the mast to begin the exercise. "You better get moving. He really will beat the crap out of you if he gets the chance." That was all Vivi needed to hear to get herself into gear. With a gulp she stood up and prepared for Naruto's incoming cage bunshin and a battle at elevated positions. Polly walked over to Naruto now that it seemed he was done personally messing with Vivi. "So where are we going next?" Naruto looked over at a sunbathing Nojiko and Miss Valentine. "Noji-chan says the next island is a place called Constellation Island. And as always I have no idea what's supposed to be there, so that should be fun all around." He said to the newest member of the crew. "So what's up?" "Nothing much," Polly said absently. "Just running a little maintenance check. I know it's only been a little while since you got this ship, but anything can go wrong, you know. If you think something's wrong with the ship don't hesitate to tell me about it." He then switched topics and glared at Miss Valentine and Nojiko. Not that they were much the wiser about it. "Why do you let these women go around on your ship like this? Women these days dress so outlandishly." Naruto shrugged. "I do it because every woman on my ship is good looking and I'm not a prude like you." Polly growled at him. Not that Naruto was threatened at him in any way, and they dress just fine with me. You should have seen the way a lot of female ninja from my continent dressed. If you reacted like that every time you saw one of them you'd have been a dead man. "Yeah, whatever," Polly said. "Pervert. Prude." Naruto fired back at him. Polly took offense to that and growled at him. "What was that, you dumb blonde?" Naruto didn't back down from a guy he already knew he could beat and got in his face. "You're blonde too, you dumb bad guy. Don't go talking bad about your own people like that." A tired female voice got their attention. "Done," Vivi said, out of breath and covered in light bruises and scratches as she limped towards Naruto. She gave him a weary gaze and got as close to his face as she could get. "Your clone is so mean," she said before resting her forehead against his chest to keep her footing. Naruto was able to wrap an arm around her before she went limp and kept her from falling out on the ground. Instead, he laid her down gently. "Medic." As Murat looked her over, Naruto shook his head and spoke in a surprised manner. "She beat the clone." "How?" Murat asked as she started to get to work on cleaning Vivi's small cuts. "It's you, isn't it? It has all of your combat abilities, right?" Naruto nodded and smirked. "Pretty much. She got beaten up for a bit before she went up to the crow's nest where Soren was and used him like a human shield. Then she kicked my clone in its junk when he got past Soren and beat her up a little bit more. That was how she beat it." He kneeled down by her and moved a stray bang out of her face, getting a smile out of the unconscious girl. "Vivi Heim is tough. Tough and opportunistic. I like that." Murat sighed as she finished working on Vivi, finding no significant injuries on her person. At least his clones know how to restrain themselves. She looked up at Naruto. "Well, she beat it on her first try in less than 5 minutes. Are you impressed?" Naruto leaned over and scooped Vivi up in his arms. "Actually I am. I knew she'd last the 5 minutes, but her actually managing to win or at least get a clean hit was more than I expected. I guess I need to stop underestimating everyone on this ship. Everyone's getting stronger, even our little princess." He groaned as he picked her up. "Who isn't that little?" As he fully stood up straight, Vivi headbutted him in the nose. "Ow, did she hear that?" Murat smirked at him and leaned back against Funkfried. "You should know better than to test your luck like that with a lady, Naruto-sama." Naruto fought the urge to hold his nose as he carried Vivi inside. Yeah. Especially a princess with a hard head," he said before looking at the sleeping girl in his arms. "You're doing great. I'll tell you that again whenever you wake up. I just wanted to say it right now." He wiggled his nose in discomfort after saying that. "You nearly broke my nose though. Maybe you should start fighting with your head," he said with a chuckle as he made it to her room. Karu sat up from his slumber in his bed and noticed Naruto carrying Vivi in. He let out a curious quack as Naruto set her down on her bed. It was just a little test that she wound up ping. She's fine, just tired. I worked her hard today. He sat down on the bed and took her boots off before tucking her in. Vivi Heim is really cute. A sharp peck in the small of his back alerted him to a glaring Karu who swung his head towards the door. Naruto took the hint and threw his arms up defensively as he started to leave. Fine, I'll check up on her later. You want something to eat, duck? I'll bring you something. Karu let off a positive quack and Naruto nodded, giving the fowl a salute that was returned right back with Karu's wing. As Naruto shut the door to the room and left Karu alone with Vivi, he sat by her bed and placed his head by her, letting her latch onto him in a hug. Only when she was certain that Naruto was gone from her room she let a small amount of pink tint her cheeks. He thinks I'm cute. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.